Part 3. Ruling Class Predation versus Natural Predation. In order to fully understand the predatory dynamics of modern society, it is useful to begin by comparing such social dynamics to predation as it commonly occurs in nature, identifying key similarities and differences in the formulation of a working diagnosis. Although some mystical philosophies allude to the intriguing notion that all predation is unnatural, even that which occurs in the so-called natural world, let us suspend such deeper concepts in our initial analysis of the subject. For the moment, we shall deem the predatory dynamics seen in nature as natural predation, and those dynamics seen between the rulership and the remainder of collective society as ruling class predation. It is additionally important not to confuse our allusions to nature with any Darwinian notions of competition-based evolution, for the Darwinian evolutionary model was in fact promoted and upheld by the predatory class themselves to reinforce the caste system of hereditary-based control, the very system that continues to quietly operate to this day. We instead refer to nature with an understanding that Earth-based biological interactions are simply physical representations of the deeper energetic dynamics that permeate organic life and set it into motion. Within the ecology of the natural world, predation is a biological interaction that occurs when a predator, or a particular organism that is hunting, feeds upon its prey, or the organism that is being hunted. Natural predation most commonly results in the death of prey and the eventual absorption of the prey's tissue through the act of consumption. The phenomenon of ruling class predation involves quite different dynamics, however. Although the various tactics employed by the ruling class can be equated to a form of hunting, the predator-to-prey interaction does not result in death for bodily consumption. Though death by way of occult ritual, particularly through the highly ritualized human sacrifice seen in war and the instrument of statecraft known as terrorism, as well as death through other acts of democide, including mass depopulation and the genocidal annihilation of targeted ethnicities and cultural modes of being, all certainly have been and still remain aspects of the ruling class's long-term agenda. The immediate, sustained dynamics of ruling class predation involve a type of consumption or harvesting of both vast material resources and the lower vibrational energy of debased human consciousness. We must further refine our working diagnosis, then, by once again turning to nature and finding a more accurate precedent. Parasitism is a specific form of predation characterized by a non-mutual, symbiotic relationship between species, where one species, the parasite, benefits at the expense of the other, the host. It is in parasitism that we find a much closer description of the predator-to-prey relationship seen in collective society. Similarity can be seen with the fact that the ruling class performs parasitism for a benefit gained at the expense of the host or mass humanity. A key similarity to also acknowledge is the symbiotic nature of the parasitic relationship, as symbiosis simply means that the relationship occurs perpetually through time, a trademark feature of the inhumanly patient ruling class's multi-generational agenda. However, not all criteria are fulfilled by this definition. For recall that natural parasitism is characterized by a non-mutual relationship. The brilliance of the control system involves the fact that its tyranny does not compromise the law of free will. Although this initially may seem perplexing, a holistic analysis of the dynamics of will and societal behavior reveals that the control system is indeed cleverly organized to manufacture the people's implicit consent. Through cunning techniques of social engineering, predictive programming, and occult methodology, the masses are alerted to the control system's actions, and through non-objection and resistance-free participation within the system itself, the people grant their implicit consent. Such inaction in the face of tyranny may be a silent consent, but such is still a willful consent nonetheless. Any real violations of will that supplement the system are performed by individuals within it who are willing to obey a chain of authority amongst a hierarchy of compartmentalized knowledge. The Illuminists atop the power pyramid are indeed aware of natural law, namely the universal consequences incurred from directly infringing upon the free will of others. Thus, the ruling class strategically gains the implicit consent of the people to insulate themselves from any universal retribution that would otherwise result from their operations in the world. Willpower thus reveals itself as the most crucial element in the social predatory equation. For although all modes of low-fidelity consciousness are indeed harvested, free will is the foremost important energetic dynamic addressed by the ruling class in the ongoing subjugation of the masses. For indeed willpower plays the supreme role in determining the collective behavior of humanity. To maintain the perpetual cultivation of low vibrational consciousness, the people's will must always be undermined. In order to fully complete our diagnosis, one additional aspect of ruling class predation is worth elucidating. This is the noteworthy fact that the ruling class prey upon members of their own species. In the ecology of nature, predation that occurs in this way between members of the same species is called intraspecific predation. And so, in consolidating all aspects of our working diagnosis, we formulate a compound term that can, at least scientifically, describe the dynamics of ruling class predation in our world. Such can be labeled as mutual intraspecific parasitism, which admittedly suffers from the limiting nature of language itself, yet is nonetheless illustrative of the complex corruption inherent to human society. The mere apprehension of such a scientific diagnosis only partially enlightens our perspective, however. In order to more fully perceive these parasitic predators for what they genuinely are, we must come to know their psyche. Part 4. Psyche of Disharmony. Comparing the trivium of holistic intelligence to the corrupt consciousness of the ruling class can additionally provide us with valuable insight. The wisdom imparted by this holistic method of discernment tells us that such an unnatural state of being as that exhibited by elitist parasitic predation is likely indicative of specific states of conflict or detachment within the ruling class's thoughts, emotions, and/or willpower. The intricate framework of society and the cleverly devised tactics of the ruling class in the ongoing manipulation and exploitation of humanity demonstrates that these predators are certainly not lacking in intellect, and in fact exhibit a ready abundance of such. Therefore, among the three main facets of their consciousness, the ruling class's capacity for analytical thinking must solidly be present. Moreover, the intense yet patient drive exhibited by the rulership in the near ubiquitous domination of the physical realm demonstrates a coherent grasp of asserting strong intention when taking action, as the ruling class obviously possess a deep understanding of the role that willpower plays in the efficacy of behavior, as well as the will's customary function in manifesting reality. Thus we can conclude that the will of the ruling class must also be firmly intact. But in consideration of the ruthless manner in which the parasitic class continue to relentlessly exploit and ebulic humanity with no seeming conscience or compassion for their actions, it is in the emotional facet of the predator's consciousness that we finally perceive a flaw. Carried out with cold and calculated maneuverability, the global governance agenda continues, exhibiting nary a shred of honesty or empathy for those in its path. As the ruling class's self-proclaimed great work trudges onward, crushing a suffering humanity beneath its massive weight, any quintessentially human feelings of care or compassion for mass humanity are quite obviously in short supply. Indeed, such higher capacity for genuine concern regarding the plight of others is absent in the ruling class's ongoing subjugation of mankind. Recall that the harmonization of all basic faculties of conscious awareness serves to heighten the vibratory frequency of human consciousness. The fact that the ruling class are disharmoniously operating with one aspect of their consciousness severely compromised can in part account for the lowly and unnatural quality of their behavior. Such poor conduct is exhibited both individually and collectively among the rulership, as personal and group behavior are inextricably related social dynamics. Such a determined willpower and high capacity for cognitive intellect, paired with little to no capacity for true empathy in the skillful manipulation of others, forms the near exact modus operandi for a quite infamous and often misunderstood form of dysfunctional consciousness known as psychopathy. Psychopathy is a heterogeneous disorder, meaning it occurs in varying degrees of severity and exists in more than one variety. Psychopathy itself occurs in primary and secondary forms. Let's explore this curious condition that plays such a crucially relevant role in the past, present, and future of the human species.